Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm Kayla and first let me say happy Valentine's Day. This day is supposed to be a special occasion where we shower an extra layer of love onto our loved ones to show them how much we care and appreciate them. However, that isn't always the intention nor the outcome, and the following three true stories are a prime example of how important it is to protect your peace and your space, not only on Valentine's Day, but every single day. Case 1. Tamika Chantal Peterson was born on November 9, 1977 in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. In 2011, 24-year-old Tamika was working a pretty good job as an accountant for Cisco Southeast Florida, which is a wholesale restaurant food supplier. She was a mother, daughter, sister, and much more to the people that loved her, and her senseless murder on Valentine's Day in 2011 would change their lives forever. At the time, Tamika and her then boyfriend, 29-year-old Gibson Paul, were living together in the Riviera Beach area. But by the time Valentine's Day came around, Tamika was done with the relationship and no longer wanted to live with or be with Gibson. She told him that she was planning to move out of the apartment and end the relationship. Tamika took the extra precaution of not being alone while this conversation took place, so she brought a friend with her, hoping that the extra company would stop the situation from escalating to a dangerous point. Unfortunately, she was wrong. Gibson's response to the breakup was beyond unjustified and extremely selfish. He decided to arm himself with a gun, and while Tamika and her friends were in the car driving away, Gibson fired multiple shots at the vehicle. A vehicle that also had a 3-year-old child in the car. And out of the 3 adults and 1 child that were in the car, one of the adult passengers was grazed by a bullet while Tamika was shot 5 times and unfortunately lost her life. Gibson Paul was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated assault, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. He was convicted of these charges and sentenced to life without parole. Rest in peace to Tamika. My heart goes out to her family and her friends and her daughter. It's just baffling to me how someone can react so poorly, for lack of a better word, to a breakup. It's evil, it's senseless, and unfortunately, way too common, as we will see in this next case. Case 2. This next case was featured on an episode of Deadline Crime with Tamara Hall, and if you'd like to watch it, it's Season 4, Episode 4. Tiana Notice was born on February 4th, 1984 in Connecticut. She was an academically successful young woman who graduated from the University of Hartford with a degree in political science, and with some encouragement from her mom, she was pursuing a master's degree in communication at her alma mater when her young, promising life was tragically cut short. Tiana's family described her as a family-oriented person who loved spending time with her family and friends, but one of her top priorities was her relationship with God. By 2007, Tiana was fresh out of a 5-year relationship with her college sweetheart and wasn't really looking for another serious relationship. So when she met a man named James Carter II on MySpace, she wanted to keep the relationship pretty casual, and she agreed to meet James for a public date. Right off the bat, James seemed to be a quality individual with his life together. He told her that he was working as a manager at a finance company, he was a homeowner, and didn't have any kids yet. All of this would turn out to be false. James was essentially love bombing her. He bought tires for her car, got her a phone on his personal plan, and at the time, Tiana just thought he was being a super nice guy. When in hindsight, he may have just been using these types of tactics to slowly start controlling her and invade her privacy. The relationship developed into something more serious, but by January 2009, it had grown into something extremely toxic. In early January of 2009, James filed a restraining order against Tiana, claiming that she'd physically assaulted him, although there was no evidence that this was true. And a couple days later, Tiana would file a restraining order as well, and as a result, James was prohibited from contacting Tiana for 2 weeks. During that time, Tiana started receiving emails from someone named Jessica Banderas, who claimed to be an ex-girlfriend of James and was threatening Tiana through these emails for multiple days. Tiana suspected that James was behind the emails and was back at the police office on January 13th to report the harassment. But police said unless she had proof that it was James, they couldn't help her. James would then file another restraining order against Tiana, forcing them both to go to court and explain their sides. Tiana provided printouts of the emails while James had absolutely no proof or evidence that Tiana was harassing him, and the court ruled that they both were to stay away from each other for 6 months. And just like a little advice here, you guys, if you feel like you need to file a restraining order against someone, 1, please do it. Do not hesitate. And 2, do not let that person back into your life, no matter what their excuse is. On January 31st, James went back to the police claiming that Tiana had sent him a flyer with her information on it. So he claimed it had her name, her phone number, and her picture, which makes no sense, guys. Like, come on. Police followed up with Tiana, who denied doing something so dumb, let's be honest. And by the time February came around, Tiana had moved on completely from the relationship. She was actually rekindling her relationship with her college sweetheart, and the two were planning to move forward and even get married. Tiana either told James about this or he'd found out about it, but his reaction was, as expected, violent and abusive. On February 7th, all 4 of Tiana's tires were slashed, and feeling like it was James, but having no proof of it, Tiana asked her father to install a security system around her home. The day before Valentine's Day, James called Tiana several times at her workplace, with co-workers witnessing these calls, and Tiana called the police to report the restraining order violation. But because she worked in a different county than the one that the restraining order was issued in, they told her she had to call the police department in the county where she worked, which is just like, are you kidding me? Like, what is the point of... It's just ridiculous. So Tiana went to the police station after work, but they claimed they didn't even believe the restraining order was real and demanded that she have the Plainville police fax over a copy before they did anything. This is fully a joke at this point. So on the morning of February 14th, 2009, Tiana went to the Plainville police to have them fax a copy over to the other police department, and she also told them about the harassment she was experiencing, and they said they would arrest James, but they never did. Instead, they called James and told him Tiana had come in to report him, and that if he did anything again or violated the restraining order, they would arrest him. So they said they would arrest him, but they didn't. They basically gave him a courtesy call. And this is just another example of the police not doing their effing jobs. Tiana, thinking James would be arrested and that she was safe, went home for just a few minutes to grab some clothes because she planned on going to her mother's house for the weekend. And unfortunately, due to a vindictive ex-boyfriend and incompetent police department, she would never make it there. By 9:40 p.m., Tiana was calling the police again, but this time she was screaming into the phone, quote, "I'm bleeding to death. My ex-boyfriend stabbed me to death." Tiana was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately didn't survive her injuries. According to Tiana's dad, she'd been stabbed multiple times and just had lost too much blood to survive. James was arrested not too long after the attack and was charged with murder. At the trial in October of 2011, witnesses recalled seeing James's car speed away from the scene after hearing screams, and James' brother and brother's girlfriend said he confessed to stabbing Tiana. James was also caught on Tiana's surveillance camera arriving at her house, and, as we can't forget, Tiana told police on the phone who attacked her as she was dying. It was also noted that Tiana had filed over 30 complaints with police in just a few weeks before her death. That's just unbelievable. James was found guilty and was sentenced to 60 years in prison, which was the max that the state of Connecticut could sentence him to. After Tiana's murder, her family received a $10 million settlement from Waterbury and Plainville police departments for their blatant negligence. And with that money, her family started the Tiana Notice Foundation, aimed at creating stricter laws against domestic violence and murder cases. And they also created a GPS system that could indicate where an abuser was in relation to their victim. Tiana's dad said, quote, "If James had a GPS on his person, Tiana would have known he was by her house." So rest in peace to Tiana. I'm glad her family was compensated in some way, although nothing can take the pain away of losing their loved one. And this case is so sad and infuriating because her murder could have been prevented if police did the one thing they were supposed to actually do, and that is protect those who need it. Case 3. A very sad and pathetic individual, yes, I said it, I'm furious at this point, you guys, named Sean Warwick had been dating 19-year-old Tiffany Barnhill when she decided she no longer wanted to be in the relationship with him. So naturally, his anger and disappointment in her decision drove him to do the absolutely unthinkable. On February 14th, 2011, at around 3:30 p.m., Sean and two other women drove to the 5400 block of Rutland Street in Frankfurt, where Tiffany's cousin, 22-year-old Mercedes Ivory, lived. While the two women waited in the car, Sean kicked in the door to the home and just started shooting. Sean then ran back to the car, tucking what I assume was the gun he used into his waistband, and the three of them drove off. Tiffany and Mercedes were both found in an upstairs bedroom, shot multiple times, and they both died from their injuries. Sean, who showed absolutely no remorse for what he did throughout this whole trial, investigation, everything, was charged with 2 murder charges and was convicted of both in August of 2011. And because a jury of 6 women and 6 men couldn't unanimously decide that he deserved the death penalty, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. The presiding judge, Judge Glenn B. Bronson, said, quote, "It's very difficult to find appropriate words to describe your behavior in this case. It was a cowardly, senseless, horrible act, and you truly do deserve to spend the rest of your life in prison." Sean had no criminal record before this and was even a Division I basketball player at some point in his life, but it just goes to show you that none of that shit matters, and you never really know what anyone is capable of. Rest in peace to Tiffany and Mercedes. My sincerest condolences go out to their families, and I hope Sean is getting every bit of karma that he deserves in whatever prison he is currently in. I hope all of these murderers are getting what they wholeheartedly deserve. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoy your Valentine's Day, but also stay aware and vigilant. The world can be a horribly dangerous place. And with that, be safe, protect your peace, and protect your space, so we don't have to cover your case. Until next time.